All right, everybody. Hey, this is John Carter with Simpler Trading, and let's take a look at some key crypto markets today and a couple of the other stock indexes. And what we want to look at today are just signs. The idea is like, okay, you always want to buy the dip, but do you always want to buy the dip, or is something larger happening? So we got a weekly chart on the left here of Solana futures, and then on the right is the daily chart. And when you have something that's in an uptrend, a strong uptrend on the weekly chart, it is going to hold its 8-period EMA. We'll talk more about this. And when it breaks it on a closing basis, it generally opens up the door to kind of a much more significant pullback. So why is that? Well, in something like this, on a more speculative asset, price begets price. Upward price gets more attention, gets more people involved. And the other thing about it is that as people are in this, and this is not just Solana, this is representative of kind of all, what I would just, for lack of a better term, let's just call it altcoins. All the altcoins out there, those are, certainly much more quality than the shit coins. But so the two things you've got going on here, and there's a third thing I'm going to come to, is that again, you got the reversal here, so all of a sudden that shows that there's at least some people just kind of taking profits. But then on a more vicious level are people that kind of got in and like, wow, this thing, they're convinced it's going to 500 and they max out their leverage, and that's where you get a day like this. And so if you look at, that's Solana. If you look at Ethereum, you are seeing something very similar here, where we're just kind of, after being close to 5,000, we're coming down pretty hard. And then from there, let's look at the most stable of them all, which is Bitcoin. And you can see that Bitcoin, it doesn't look too bad right now, right? But what I'm seeing in Bitcoin, and this is something that, having been in the markets for, gosh, it's been over 30 years now, dating myself. But what happens in situations like this is that leverage is a self-liquidating form of holding a position. So what does that mean? Essentially, it means if you've got something with a lot of leverage and there's a lot of other people out there using a lot of leverage, you've created your own guaranteed stop loss situation. So that's the first thing. Okay, so you get a lot of people using leverage, and what will happen there, it's kind of like, okay, well, if you got people with a lot of leverage, it'll ding this, it'll ring some of them out, but the ones that aren't using as much leverage, they're safe. But then, things start rolling over again. Well, why do they start rolling over again? It's because of, when you have a lot of leverage like that, think of that as like laddered stops. And so, the initial kind of, worst amount of leverage gets stopped first, but that pushes selling down to the next levels where people get margin calls, which creates more selling, which pushes it down to the next level where people get margin calls, right? And that can go on and on and on. That's a lot of times what can cause what might look like a flash crash. On top of this, what we got with Bitcoin is a record amount of debt against actual Bitcoin holdings. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, if you've got a house, let's say you have a house and you bought it at 200K, and then today, and then now it's worth 800K and it's paid off, and you're like, geez, I want to get a loan against it. So you get a loan of 500K against it. Okay, so that's it's basically getting a loan against your house. You can do the same thing with Bitcoin. And so what happened up here when it was at 120,000, and people are like, gosh, I don't want to sell this, and then invoke taxes, and I think this is going to go to 500,000 and all the things, they started taking out a lot of loans against it. So say someone has, $1 million worth of Bitcoin, they could get $600,000 in loans, no problem, when it's at 120, with the idea that, hey, if this falls to 80,000, if you don't start paying it back, we are going to liquidate your holdings to start reducing the amount of your debt. Okay, so that's what's going on here. And there's a lot of loans that were taken out up here with the idea that it's like, man, this thing's going to 200,000, 300,000. I don't want to sell it, but I could use some cash. And now the markets smell blood in the water. And what I think is going to happen here, and of course, the market's going to do whatever it wants. And by the way, none of this is, I'm bullish Bitcoin long term, so none of this is just how the markets work. That on top of everybody that's over leveraged in Bitcoin, now you've got people that are getting loans against their Bitcoin, and they're not leveraged in terms of like using leverage to own a bunch of Bitcoin, they're just borrowing against their Bitcoin. This is something that could actually get exacerbated pretty fast. So one scenario here is we actually kind of come down to 80K, we get a dead cat bounce. But again, the markets smell blood in the street, if 80K is kind of the trigger for all these loans, we're going to go below that and we're going to force liquidation, and that could actually get us a flush, and then you buy the crap out of that flush. All right, so that's one thing coming up. From there, I mean, we've had a lot of moves here in the Mag 7 that are overdone. SPX here down 80 points today, back to its 21 EMA. Are we going to get more than this? Well, at the very least, we got to test the 8. We haven't tested the 8 EMA on a weekly chart for a while. And typically every 3 or 4 weeks, even in a strong uptrend, you're going to test that 8 EMA in the weekly. Now, the 8 EMA on the weekly isn't that far away now. Let's call it 6,700. So that's only 70 points away. If for some reason we get 2 weekly closes below that, then it opens up the door to the 21 EMA. I don't think we're there yet, but I do think at the very least we need to test that 8 EMA on the weekly, and same with the NDX. NDX is actually way, let's call it 25,000, 24,950. So, I mean, that's still 500 points away. So again, that's another day like today before we actually see some semblance of what I would simply call normal. And if we can flush down there, then what do we buy? And that's when we step in and we get Nvidia. I don't know where Nvidia exactly is going to be trading there. If the NDX is at the 8 EMA weekly, Nvidia could be at 188. Okay, awesome. We definitely buy that. What about Tesla? And Tesla here I think looks fantastic. The 8 EMA weekly is 427 or 443. That's not that far away. I would absolutely buy Tesla there. Interestingly enough, Apple was up today. Apple doesn't care what's happening. It's on a different planet right now. What about, like, say, Microsoft? Microsoft here, you can see that the 5 and 8 EMA have kind of blended together here. Microsoft is no longer in an uptrend. Microsoft is sideways, and it'll probably be sideways for a while. So I am not a buyer of Microsoft, okay? I want to see something where that 5 and 8 EMA weekly are apart, they're angled upwards, and then we're buying pullbacks. That is not what's happening in Microsoft. What about Amazon? Amazon's a little better, a little bit more of a special case. Are we going to, if we get an opportunity to get 231, that's fine, but you got a little extra there. If it gets there, great. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I just don't expect it to for right now. Google, same thing. If it can get there, fantastic. But the two I'm really focused in on here are Nvidia and Tesla in terms of being able to pick those up. All right. One last thing. We have our first live event in 3 years coming up in Austin, Texas. It is sold out. We've had some people that ask, like, hey, I wasn't able to buy a ticket and I want to go. And then other people are like, look, I don't want to travel. I hate travel. I don't want to fly to Austin. I'd love you guys. I would love to see it. So we're going to do a live stream. It's just $197. We'll be trading all day. That's going to be the fun thing about this. Instead of just one of us on a mic, it's myself, Sam, Henry, Allison, David. And we're all going to be just kind of working and talking together and trading the markets live and talking about some of our updated strategies and things like that. And so the dynamic there of us all being in the same room is fun. And I take notes because it's like, oh, we don't get to do this very often because we're all just kind of talking separately and talking on Slack. And, a lot of dynamite can happen when you're all just kind of hanging out together. And we'll do Q&A and stuff like that. Tom Sozanoff is going to be there. He said Bat might be able to show up as well, which would be kind of fun. And we're going to do poker that night. That won't be live streamed, but we can tell you the results of it and all that kind of stuff. You can go to simplertrading.com/stream. There'll probably be a link on it here somewhere too. All right. You guys have a good one, and we'll see you at the next update.
Hey, John here with Simpler Trading. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, comment down below and let us know what topic you want to see us cover next. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you can get notified when we release new videos. And if you want to watch us trade in real time using our own money, go to simplertrading.com and learn how to sign up. Good trading, and we'll see you next time.